This happened quite a long time ago in the Smoky Mountains. That day, I was with my two nephews, bright, goofy kids, still too young to see how mean and messed up the world can get. I'd promised their mom, my sister, that I'd take them camping for 2 days. Fresh air, clear skies, and good old-fashioned nature. We were cruising in my old RV, something I'd patched up and cleaned for this little adventure. The boys were hyped, bouncing in their seats and pointing out every squirrel and tree like it was something from National Geographic. We stopped at the nearest town for supplies, jerky, marshmallows, firewood, the essentials. Locals gave us polite nods, the kind you get when they don't quite know if you're a tourist or trouble. About 10 miles past that town, just when the road started to feel more like a deer trail, things got weird. Out of nowhere, a woman appeared in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes so hard everything in the cabin lurched. She looked like she'd crawled out of a goddamn grave, skin pale and scabbed, hair matted like a dog's tail, eyes wide and darting like a feral animal. She staggered toward us, twitching, muttering something I couldn't catch. The boys fell dead silent. My stomach sank. She was clearly messed up, probably on meth or whatever poison she'd been cooking in a backwoods trailer. I rolled the window down just a crack, keeping one hand on the steering wheel and the other near the glove box where I kept a knife. No license for it, but screw that. She leaned in, sniffing the air like she was smelling blood. "You got water?" she slurred. "Get the hell away from my ERV," I said, flat and cold. She didn't flinch, just kept staring, like she didn't understand what no meant. Then she tried to open the side door. That was it. I floored it. This wasn't normal person asking for water. Something was way off. She was just standing there in the middle of nowhere, and the fear hit all of us at once. Then she reached for the door handle. I didn't wait. I hit the gas and tore down the road. In the side mirror, I saw her shrinking into the distance, arms flailing wildly like she was trying to curse us, maybe. The boys asked me what happened. I didn't know what to say. "Just some crazy woman," I mumbled. "Don't worry about it." We drove for another hour, deeper into the woods, until we reached a clearing I knew, a remote spot far off the beaten path. No cell service, no traffic, no other campers. I figured it would be perfect. I figured wrong. The sun was dipping low when we parked and set up camp. We roasted marshmallows, told dumb stories, and tried to pretend everything was normal. But I kept looking at the trees. I didn't like how quiet it was. Oh my God, dead quiet. The boys went to bed early, curled up in their bunks inside the ERV. I stayed up outside with a beer and a fire, just listening. That was exactly around midnight. I heard it. Crunch. A footstep. Then another. My blood ran cold. I killed the fire and ducked inside, locking every door and drawing the curtains. From the front window, I saw figures moving through the woods. 5, maybe 6 of them, all just as ragged and twitchy as the woman from before. They moved like predators, slow and deliberate, eyes reflecting the moonlight. One of them was holding a tire iron. Another had a chain, I think. And it was clear that they didn't have good intentions. I grabbed the only weapon I had, a flare gun. Not ideal, but it beats nothing. I loaded it and stepped up to the window. "Leave." "Now!" I shouted. They stopped. One of them, a tall guy with a scar running down his cheek, smiled this sick, lazy grin. "We just want to talk," he said. "Talk to the cops," I snapped. "They'll be here in 10 minutes. That was a lie, of course. No service out there. No one was coming. But I said it like I meant it. Bluff or not, it worked. They started backing away, muttering, giving me the kind of look you give someone who's more trouble than they're worth. I didn't wait for a second chance. I fired up the engine and peeled out of there so fast I nearly took the fire pit with us. The boys woke up screaming, thinking we were crashing. I told them to hang on, to stay low, to shut up and let me drive. We stopped there as we hit that same little town we passed through on the way in. There was a sheriff's deputy, and I told him everything. The cop took our statement, gave the boys a couple candy bars to calm them down, and told me we were lucky. I didn't need him to tell me that. I knew. It turns out they'd had reports, trashed campsites, stolen gear. The locals had been scared for months, but nobody had caught the group in the act. Always gone before anyone arrived. We drove home in silence. The boys didn't speak the whole way, and I didn't push them. Whatever childhood innocence they had left, it took a hit that night. And me? I've seen a lot of messed up stuff in my life, but nothing like those dead-eyed freaks stalking us in the woods. You go camping for peace, for a break, to get away from the filth of society. But sometimes the filth follows you. Sometimes it waits for you, out there in the darkness, behind the trees. It grins and whispers and waits for your fire to die. That day, I took my two friends, Matt and Derek, up to the Smokies like I usually did. Just a weekend of bad whiskey, worse jokes, and the kind of silence you only get when you're miles from anything that matters. But this trip was different. We weren't just out there for a couple nights, like usual. No, this time we planned a full week. A whole week off-grid. No cell service. No cars. Just tents, firewood, and the wild. We pitched camp off a seldom-used trailhead, way off the beaten path. No rangers, no other hikers. Perfect. It was me, Matt, and Derek. Solid guys. We'd been through a lot together over the years. But on the second day, someone else stumbled into our little slice of nowhere, a guy named Brian. We found him down by the stream, just standing there, staring at the water like he was trying to hypnotize it. He was carrying a pack, a little beat up, and his clothes looked like they'd seen too many nights without shelter. My first thought was that maybe he was one of those hardcore solo campers. The kind that thinks being dirty and silent makes you part of the wilderness. Fine. People get weird when they're out here long enough. I wasn't gonna judge. He told us his name was Brian, said he'd been hiking the trails for a few days and got a little turned around. Claimed he just needed a place for shelter. Against my better judgment, we let him stay. It's easy to be generous when you're surrounded by trees and stars. But that was my first mistake. From the jump, the guy was quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. He didn't say much, barely made eye contact, and when he did, it felt like he was sizing you up. I don't scare easy. Still, he didn't do anything to justify kicking him out. Not yet. So, he stayed, and every night after that got a little worse. Brian didn't talk much, just hiked ahead like he was on a mission. No big deal. Some people like the solitude. But by the second night, I started noticing the little things, the way he'd stare into the fire too long, like it was whispering to him. The way he'd disappear for hours and come back with his hands caked in dirt, like he'd been digging. Derek joked about it. Dude's probably burying bodies. We laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that dies too fast. Then the animals started vanishing. First, it was just a squirrel that had been poking around camp. Gone by morning. Then, a rabbit Derek had seen near the creek. Nothing left but a few tufts of fur caught on a thorn. We blamed coyotes, told ourselves it was just nature being nature. But then I saw Brian throwing rocks at a raccoon like he was trying to cave its skull in. Not scaring it off, hurting it. The way he moved was all wrong. I called him out on it. "What the hell, man?" He just looked at me with those dead fish eyes and said, "They're watching us." That's when the real dread set in. The next night, I woke up to something scratching at the tent. Too slow, too deliberate. I held my breath, listening. Then I heard it, muttering. Brian's voice, low and raspy, like he was arguing with someone. Or something. I grabbed my knife and unzipped the tent just enough to see. There he was, crouched by a tree, carving into the bark with his hunting blade. Not initials. Not words. Just jagged lines, over and over, like he was trying to dig something out. His lips were moving, but the words didn't make sense. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Around 3 a.m, I woke up to footsteps outside my tent. Not the soft, bumbling kind you expect from a guy looking for a place to piss. These were deliberate, slow, like whoever it was wanted to be heard. I held my breath and reached for my knife. The footsteps stopped right in front of my tent flap. Then I heard the whispering. I've never felt fear like that. It wasn't just hearing it, it was feeling it, deep in my bones. That same low murmur Brian had been doing by the trees. I knew it was him. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I waited another 10 minutes, then slid out of my tent with my knife in hand. Brian was gone. His tent was empty. I shook Matt and Derek awake and told them we were leaving. Right now. We packed our gear and hiked out in the dark. There was something wrong with that man. Not just strange, broken. Rotten on the inside. Maybe he was just some psycho loner. Maybe he was into stuff I don't want to understand. Or maybe there's something worse in those woods, something that called him out there. People like him don't get sick, they get worse. Was he just some messed up guy with a head full of bad wiring? Or was there something else in those woods with us? Something that got inside him and changed him? I don't allow shelter to the strangers anymore. And I sure as hell don't camp out there deep without a loaded gun and a clear path to the truck. Because the truth is, the woods aren't the scary part. It's the people who belong to them. This is one of the scariest damn things that's ever happened to me in the Smokies, and I've spent enough nights in these mountains to know when something isn't right. Even now, years later, I still lie awake sometimes, staring at the dark ceiling, wondering. Whatever the hell we heard out there that night wasn't natural. And it sure as shit wasn't anything I've ever been able to explain. There were 3 of us, me, Ryan, and Jace. We weren't rookies. We weren't the kind of who freak out at every snapped branch or hoot in the dark. We'd spent years hunting these hills, knew them like the backs of our hands. That's why we went deep, real deep, past where the tourists and weekend warriors turned back. We wanted boar, whiskey, and silence. What we got was something else entirely. The spot we picked was a hollow tucked between 2 ridges, miles from the nearest trailhead. The kind of place where the trees grow too close, too thick, like they're hiding something. The air always feels heavier there, like the mountains themselves are pressing down on you. We set up camp as the sun bled out behind the peaks, laughing, drinking, talking shit like always. For a few hours, it was perfect. Just 3 guys, a fire, and the kind of quiet you only find when you're far enough from civilization to forget it exists. Then night fell, and that's when things got wrong. At first, it was just a hum. Low, distant, like a truck idling way the hell off in the valley. We barely noticed it. Figured it was someone on an ATV or maybe a generator from a campsite we couldn't see. But then it changed. The sound climbed. Not like an engine revving, no. This was smoother, sharper, like a saw blade dragged slow over bone. It didn't belong. Not here. Not in these mountains, where the night should be full of crickets, owls, the rustle of leaves. This was something else. Something that made my gut twist. Ryan was the first to say it. What the hell is that? We all froze. The firelight flickered over our faces, casting shadows that jumped like something alive. The sound kept rising, twisting, until it wasn't a hum anymore. It was a shriek. Not an animal. Not machinery. Something in between. Something that vibrated in my teeth, my ribs, like the goddamn earth itself was screaming. And then silence. Not normal quiet. Not the hush of a forest holding its breath. This was dead air. No wind. No goddamn nothing. Like the whole Smokies had been smothered under a blanket. We sat there, like statues, staring at each other, like one of us might have an answer. Jace, usually the first to crack a joke, looked pale. Ryan's hand was on his rifle. My own fingers twitched toward my gun, but what the hell was I gonna shoot? The air? We spent the next hour trying to make sense of it. Military experiment? Some kind of underground drilling? But we were miles from any roads, any power lines, any fucking thing that could make a noise like that. And that sound, it wasn't mechanical, not really. It was too alive, too hungry. The rest of the night was a blur of jump scares and half-whispered bullshit. Every snapped twig was a threat. We barely slept. And when I did, I dreamed of that sound like the mountains were trying to tell me something, and I was too stupid to understand. By morning, the woods were normal again. Birds chirped. I've asked around since then, hunters, rangers, old-timers who've lived in these hills their whole lives. No one's heard anything like it. No one's got an answer. I still camp in the Smokies, but I never go as deep as we did that night.